This word lust, the other day, someone asked about this greed, hatred, and delusion, and then lust, hatred, and delusion. This word lust, I think, doesn't necessarily mean in regard to sex. Lust means a strong greed, very strong greed. So it is lust. And then the verses follow. When one experiences pleasure, if one does not understand feeling, the tendency to lust is present, for one not seeing the escape from it. When one experiences pain, if one does not understand feeling, the tendency to aversion is present, for one not seeing the escape from it. The one of broad wisdom has taught, with reference to that peaceful feeling, neither painful nor pleasant. If one seeks delight even in this, one is still not released from suffering. But when a monk who is ardent does not neglect clear comprehension, then that wise man fully understands feelings in their entirety. Having fully understood feelings, he is taintless in this very life. Standing in Dhamma, with the body's breakup, the knowledge master cannot be reckoned. That's the end of the sutta. So how do we get rid of this underlying tendency? That is by cultivating samadhi. When our mind is very strong, then it is not easily moved by lust or aversion. The next sutta, 35.4, the Buddha said, monks, when the unlearned ordinary worldling makes the statement, in the great ocean there is a bottomless abyss, he makes such a statement about something that is non-existent and unreal. This, monks, is rather a designation for painful bodily feelings, that is, bottomless abyss. When the uninstructed or the unlearned ordinary worldling is contacted by a painful bodily feeling, he sorrows, grieves, and laments. He weeps and beats his breast and becomes distraught. This is called an unlearned ordinary worldling who has not risen up in the bottomless abyss, one who has not gained a foothold. But monks, when the learned noble disciple is contacted by a painful bodily feeling, he does not sorrow, grieve, or lament. He does not weep and beat his breast and become distraught. This is called a learned noble disciple who has risen up in the bottomless abyss, one who has gained a foothold. And then the verses, one who cannot endure the arisen painful feelings, bodily feelings that sap one's life, who trembles when they touch him, a weakling of little strength, who weeps out loud and wails. He has not risen up in the bottomless abyss, nor has he even gained a foothold. But one who is able to endure them, the arisen painful feelings, bodily feelings that sap one's life, who trembles not when they touch him, he has risen up in the bottomless abyss, and he has also gained a foothold. That's the end of the sutta. So the Buddha says, some people say that there is a bottomless abyss in the ocean. The Buddha says there's no such thing. But the Buddha says painful bodily feelings, that is the bottomless abyss. And if an ordinary person contacted by painful feeling, he sorrows, grieves, and totally becomes distraught. He has not risen up from the bottomless abyss. But the learned noble disciple, when he is contacted by painful bodily feeling, he does not sorrow, grieve, or lament. He bears the pain. Then he is called one who has risen up from the bottomless abyss. That's the end of the sutta. 36.5. Monks, there are these three feelings. What three? Pleasant feeling, painful feeling, neither painful nor pleasant feeling. Pleasant feelings, monks, should be seen as Pleasant feeling, monks, should be seen as painful. Painful feelings should be seen as a dart. Neither painful nor pleasant feeling should be seen as impermanent. When a monk has seen pleasant feeling as painful, painful feeling as a dart, and neither painful nor pleasant feeling as impermanent, he is called a monk who sees rightly. He has cut off craving, severed the fetters, and by completely breaking through conceit, he has made an end to suffering. One who has seen the pleasant as painful and the painful as a dart, seen as impermanent the peaceful feeling, neither painful nor pleasant, he is a monk who sees rightly, one who fully understands feelings. Having fully understood feelings, he is stainless in this very life. Standing in Dhamma, with the body's breakup, the knowledge master cannot be reckoned. That's the end of the sutta. So, if you remember when we discussed dependent origination, the 12 links of dependent origination, suffering arises because when there is a pleasant feeling, we crave for it. Because there is an underlying tendency to crave for pleasant feelings. So if you crave for pleasant feelings, then you have attachment, clinging, and clinging gives rise to bhava, this being. You feel that I am or I exist, and because you have this existence, I exist, then there is rebirth. So you want to break the chain of the 12 links of dependent origination. It is at feeling that we can break the chain, only at feeling. So feeling is very important. We should not be thoroughly overpowered by feeling. There are some people, they cannot control themselves totally. You can see very normal people, for example, when they eat good food, the food is good, they cannot control themselves, they indulge so horribly, almost like our dogs. When the dogs, you bring good food to them, the saliva will come down the mouth. So human beings are a bit like that. So unfortunately, people who cannot control their tongue, they cannot live long. Because even in the sutta, I remember the Kosala Samyutta, and the Buddha told the Pasanadi king, restrain his eating, then he have a long life. I had a devotee in Penang, he could not restrain his eating, then he had a stroke. And after that, for a few years he restrained himself. After a few years, when he recovered, he could not restrain himself again. Before he reached 50, he passed away. So here the Buddha says, pleasant feeling should be seen as painful. This one, ordinary person will never see it this way. When pleasant feeling arises, if you have the wisdom, you know, you warn yourself, don't get attached to it. Because if you get attached to it, and then when you lose it, you are going to suffer. Which reminds me, one of our devotees in KL, he told me something. He told me a few years ago, he sent his son to Australia to study. The son went swimming, I think, and drowned. The only son, he had one son, I think, and two daughters. So the only son drowned. He and his wife suffered so much. Then after that, he told me, after that experience, he dare not love his daughter so much. So he knows, just like this, pleasant feeling should be seen as painful. And then painful feeling should be seen as a dart. When we have painful feeling, it pokes us like a dart. And then neither painful nor pleasant feeling should be seen as impermanent. For example, if you get a good meditation and your mind is very equanimous, you feel very nice, but you should realize that it is impermanent, it will pass away. Don't attach to it. So if a monk sees feelings in this way, then he has cut off craving, severed the fetters, and he breaks through conceit that I am, and then he will end suffering. You see, suttas like this, we never think that we should see pleasant feeling as painful. That's why it's so good to study the Buddha's words. When you study the Buddha's words, all these words of wisdom, and it's as though the Buddha is giving us a shortcut. If you didn't hear these words, you'll have to meditate many years and attain jhana before you realize this yourself. But here, the Buddha is telling us so that we see it clearly without even striving to attain it. The next sutta is 36.6. The Buddha said, monks, the unlearned ordinary worldling feels a pleasant feeling, a painful feeling, and a neither painful nor pleasant feeling. The learned noble disciple also feels a pleasant feeling, a painful feeling, and a neither painful nor pleasant feeling. Therein, monks, what is the distinction, the disparity, the difference between the learned noble disciple and the unlearned ordinary worldling? And the monk said, Venerable Sir, our teachings are rooted in the Blessed One, guided by the Blessed One, take recourse in the Blessed One. It would be good if the Blessed One would clear up the meaning of this statement. Having heard it from him, the monks will remember it. Then listen and attend closely, monks, I will speak. Yes, Venerable Sir, the monks replied. Monks, when the unlearned ordinary worldling is being contacted by a painful feeling, he sorrows, grieves, and laments. He weeps, beating his breast, and becomes distraught. He feels two feelings, a bodily one and a mental one. Suppose they were to strike a man with a dart, then they would strike him immediately afterwards with a second dart, so that the man would feel a feeling caused by two darts. So too, when the unlearned ordinary worldling is being contacted by a painful feeling, he sorrows, grieves, and laments. He weeps, beating his breast, and becomes distraught. He feels two feelings, a bodily one and a mental one. Being contacted by the same painful feeling, he harbors aversion towards it. When he harbors aversion towards painful feeling, the underlying tendency to aversion towards painful feelings lies behind this. Being contacted by painful feeling, he seeks delight in sensual pleasure. For what reason? Because the unlearned ordinary worldling does not know of any escape from painful feeling other than sensual pleasure. When he seeks delight in sensual pleasure, the underlying tendency to lust for pleasant feeling lies behind this. He does not understand as it really is the origin and the passing away, the gratification, danger, and escape in the case of these feelings. When he does not understand these things, the underlying tendency to ignorance in regard to neither painful nor pleasant feeling lies behind this. When he feels a pleasant feeling, he feels it attached. If he feels a painful feeling, he feels it attached. If he feels a neither painful nor pleasant feeling, he feels it attached. This monk is called an unlearned ordinary worldling, who is attached to birth, aging, and death, who is attached to sorrow, lamentation, pain, displeasure, and despair, who is attached to suffering, I say. Monks, when the learned noble disciple is contacted by a painful feeling, he does not sorrow, grieve, or lament. He does not beat his breast and become distraught. He feels one feeling, a bodily one, not a mental one. Suppose they were to strike a man with a dart, but they would not strike him immediately afterwards with a second dart, so that the man would feel a feeling caused by one dart only. So too, when the learned noble disciple is contacted by a painful feeling, he does not sorrow, grieve, or lament. He does not weep, beating his breast, and become distraught. He feels one feeling, a bodily one, not a mental one. Being contacted by that same painful feeling, he harbors no aversion towards it. Since he harbors no aversion towards painful feeling, the underlying tendency to aversion towards painful feeling does not lie behind this. Being contacted by painful feeling, he does not seek delight in sensual pleasure. For what reason? Because the learned noble disciple knows of an escape from painful feeling other than sensual pleasure. Since he does not seek delight in sensual pleasure, the underlying tendency to lust